Hello, I'm your professor, Dr. Stephen Haggard, and today I would like to talk to you about ChatGPT. Unless you've been living under a rock, undoubtedly you've heard of ChatGPT. If you haven't, go ahead and pause this video right now and go use Google to learn what it is. And if you can't use Google, then there's not much I can do to help you out. So go ahead and pause it and learn what it is, and then come back. All right, hopefully now you all know what ChatGPT is. And the big question being asked is, should you worry about ChatGPT? And the answer is no, not yet. And there are a few reasons for that. Number one, it's still experimental and it still gets the wrong answers. Even the creators of ChatGPT know this to be true and tell you straight up front. So why is it making mistakes? Well, the training material can be flawed. This thing is going out there and scooping up all sorts of electronic data, and anyone who is familiar with the internet at all knows that not everything that's out there is true or accurate. And so that's the first thing that we're going to talk about. The second thing that's even more comforting is that they can't even keep the website up at this point. And so the chance that this thing's going to take over the world is pretty low. At this point, it's about as reliable as Windows XP. Now, let's ask, is ChatGPT going to take your job? And the answer is, it depends. Some jobs actually have portions that can be done by ChatGPT. For instance, writing copy for real estate postings and such. Now, what can you do? First of all, sit down and figure out what it is about your job that can be done by ChatGPT. And instead of sitting there crying in your coffee, figure out how to use ChatGPT as a productivity enhancement. In other words, use ChatGPT to your favor. Go out and have this thing do your work once it's available. Do your work, and then be sure to check the work, though, because we know this thing still makes mistakes. Now, after you have done this, you'll have a productivity enhancement. It means you're going to have more free time. And with that free time, I would advise that you upskill yourself through training or taking on additional assignments that cannot be done by ChatGPT, thereby making yourself valuable. You can't be replaced by ChatGPT if you learn these new skills. For example, do you think ChatGPT could ever sell a car to anybody? My guess is no. And finally, let's address using ChatGPT for investing. I can see several people might run out there and ask ChatGPT what kinds of investments they should be making. And so what's going on here is that ChatGPT is going out and looking at what other people are saying and probably will report to you the consensus. It's useful to know what the consensus is, but be careful. The material used to train ChatGPT came from 2021, and so the material is out of date. But let's say that it can even go out today and look at all the investment advice out there. If you get the consensus, should you go along with it? Well, there are two schools of thought. Number one is the herding mentality, and that is where you jump in with the crowd. This is a favorite among momentum investors, and you can go out there and Google that if you don't know what a momentum investor is. And the second school of thought belongs to Warren Buffett, or at least it's espoused by him, and he says this: you should be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. So, you should look at what the consensus is, but what you do with that advice is entirely up to you. I tend to be more like Buffett than like a herder. And my father has been more like Buffett for his entire investing career, pushing lots of cash in 1987 when the market crashed, and doing the same every single time it's crashed since then. And as a result, he's done quite well, especially compared to those who sold when everyone else was selling and bought when everyone else was buying. So in closing, we need to keep in mind that humans have survived for millennia with constantly improving technology. And our ancestors got to reproduce because they were able to master the new technologies. Those who did not were left behind in the dustbin of the gene pool. Now, it's not quite that harsh these days, but I will say this. Those who learn to master the new tools will move ahead, and those who fail to master these tools will be left behind. So be sure that you are in the first camp and not the second. Please drop me questions or comments down below. I would be pleased to hear what your thoughts are.